Good evening, everybody. It is Straight Talk Food for the Soul, and I am happy to be here. Last week we had to do some reconstruction because I wasn't in my studio, and we still have live taping for you to come this week. But on this week, I have two amazing men tonight, and they're going to help me talk about infidelity and cheating. And is that the worst offense can be done in a relationship? We are going to ask Minister Burns to pray us in, and then I'll do the scripture, and then we're going to jump right on in.
Absolutely. Let's pray. God in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity to talk and to have straight talk. We thank you for this platform. We thank you for Minister Hutchinson and how she continues to serve you and your people. We pray, God, that this time would be edifying, and that you would be glorified in what is said and what is done. And that somebody would be encouraged, somebody would be built up, somebody would know that you are a God who loves them and who cares for them more than anyone else. We thank you, honor, and love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. And our scripture tonight is going to be First Corinthians, the 13th chapter, verses 4 through 5. And it says, love is kind, love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wrong. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. So from there, when I picked this scripture, I was in my mind because I have dealt with infidelity in my relationships. That scripture said, love is kind. Then I said, well, should I have stayed in the relationship after it happened? That was my first thought after reading the scripture.
Hmm.
So we're going to go a little further. I have a few words, gentlemen. I define words. And the reason why I do this, I did not learn how to spell until I was 48. I'm 57 now. I always carried a dictionary because in high school, my teacher didn't teach me how to blend words. She just said carry a dictionary. So I leaned on that. So now I have a love for words and their derivatives, where they come from, what they do, what their content, and why they mold and make things. So my first word is infidelity. I'm going to tell you what my definition is. You tell me if more can be added, taken away, if you like it or you don't like the definition. Infidelity, an action or a state of being unfaithful to a spouse or a partner. But the little piece that came with it, it says engaging in sexual or romantic relationship. I was thinking, how can infidelity be romantic? So either one of you guys can jump in.
Yeah. So infidelity, I think, is can be anything, right? It can be in some people, it can be the beginning phases, right? It doesn't have to advance all the way to sexual activity, but the thought, right? And that's what Jesus talks about in the Bible is like, wandering eyes and lusting over someone. That doesn't physically always happen. That's just you looking and imagining and envisioning the thought of, this person in their nakedness, or this person in their lewd. And so it starts up here. And that, for some people, right, it could be a text message. It could be intimacy with spending time with someone that's not your spouse or not your partner. That's where it starts. And so the extra with the sexual, um that is to be determined, because infidelity can start in the mind first. Everything starts in the mind. Starts in the mind and the heart when you start lusting after someone.
Yeah. No, I think so. To answer the question, you said how does romance come? I think romance is intimacy. And so anytime you enter into, whether it's intimate, like Marcus was saying, intimate discussion, or intimacy meaning into the spaces of your life and of your heart that are only reserved for the person who you are in a covenant relationship with. So anytime you enter, you allow someone who you are not in covenant relationship with into the intimate spaces, into the secret places, or if they're using language of like the tabernacle, you allow them into your holy of holies. Then at that point, now it becomes romance, because that is a place of worship. That's a place of intimacy. That's a place that's secrecy that everybody is not allowed in. And so when you let someone else who is not there, you have violated this covenant. So that's where the romance part comes in.
Y'all, we only did one word and we already there. I am very happy that both of you used your words and crafted what, because it's what I'm feeling. And my feeling when both of you were talking is that sin kills intimacy and it breaks down something very special between as you say, a covenant relationship. Because there are people that have relationships that aren't married, they're
So
not married and they're intimate with one another. So what's the difference with being married and being intimate and just being in a relationship and being intimate?
So we've broken that confine, and a lot of things that, just like Pastor Burns said, is we have crossed a lot of lines, and a lot of those lines have there are things that, just like you said, there are things reserved only for marriage. There are things reserved only for your partner, and that line has gotten blurred over time, over the years, because we want to commit the sin, the temptation, the lust for sin, and also, too, I would say, the curiosity, right? We're not talking about intimacy and what that looks like between a man or a woman anymore, and we're not talking about it enough. And just in my experience, it's not educated on. Typically, when you talk about intimacy, all that's typically shared is, um that's reserved for a husband and wife. But where's the breakdown? Where's the explanation? Where's the levels to this thing? How do I get to that point, which is the premarital counseling, the courtship, the dating, right? And what that's supposed to look like. And that can come from a number of different places, but just one, not seeing it. We have a lot of extended families, and we have too many broken homes where we're not seeing what this is supposed to look like. Where people are moving in together, we're in a recession, people are living together before the true covenant is made. And that can, over time, just like um evolution, right? We evolve over time. Over the course of years, you start to see this happen more and more often when people are living together, they're in the marital bedroom together, and they're not necessarily coveted to be together. And then the flip side of that is we're breaking up, and none of those questions in between get answered. And so you have a child seeing this, you have another human being seeing this, and they assume that this is normal, because we are a construct of our life's examples, and we are made up of what we see and experience every day. And because we're seeing this, we assume that that's the way it's supposed to be. Same thing with an abuser, right? An abuser doesn't know what they're doing is wrong until they see otherwise, until you teach them otherwise. So it's really getting blurred, and it really needs to reverse. We really need to change course on it.
okay, I'm sorry. What was the
You're
original question?
fine. You're fine.
What was the original question? Let me make sure, because I'm listening and I'm processing what he just said. But what was the original question? I'm sorry.
The original question is, what is the difference between a covenant relationship between a husband and wife and someone who is having a relationship, they're not married, but they're doing the same things? What's the big difference?
Between a covenant relationship between a husband and wife and two people who are doing the same thing.
But they're not married though. They're paying bills together, they sleep together, they're raising kids together, they're sharing everything. So what's the difference?
Yeah, I think if you are now this we're I'm going to make an assumption here that we're referring to Christians.
Yes.
Okay, so if we're referring to Christians, then the difference is that as Christians, we believe that there is something set apart about the covenant of marriage. And so that covenant is the difference. Like, it's not the bills and the raising kids. It's this covenant that once we come under that covenant, that there is I don't want to use the word benefits, but it's different. There are differences that you get that you gain. There's a certain, there's just, yeah, there's different levels to there's levels to it that we believe as Christian men and women that covenant gives you. So it almost like it's a tying together between us and God. So now it's almost as if we're saying that we want that God to bless what we're doing, and so we are submitting our relationship to God and not just ruling our relationships ourselves.
Yeah.
Our next word is going to be unfaithful. And my definition is breaking a vow or a promise. And when I thought of the word unfaithful, I never thought about something breaking, something ripped, something tore apart. And I should have known that scripturally. I should have known that, but it was so much different when I was researching and I was studying, and I saw it as like somebody taking material and ripping it apart. But it's different because it's your heart that's ripped apart when something unfaithful happens. That is so much deeper, and the pain that it has caused, because in my marriage when it ended, I felt like two different people, because before the day I walked into the courthouse, I was Miss So and so. Then I was Mrs. when I left. And my life was never the same. And it took me years to put the pieces back together. So unfaithful, breaking a vow or promise.
Yeah. And it is, the answer is kind of in the word, right? It's a broken promise, right? God gave us 10 commandments. And people oftentimes they miss this, they forget this. They talk about the blessings and the joys and the greatness of God and the outpouring of God. But we also have to remember that he's also a God of wrath. And so that unfaithfulness, it comes from broken promises. You made a promise at that altar. You made a promise to your partner, commitment to love and cherish and to hold each other in sickness and in poor. And when that promise is broken, it leaves you void. There's a void missing. And so it wants to invoke wrath. It wants to invoke so many emotions, so many characteristics that we weren't expecting. And even God, there are numerous examples where he destroyed an entire city for unfaithfulness because they broke the promises to God. They weren't believers. They weren't faithful. And so when we experience unfaithfulness, it's a broken promise. Couples who make that covenant, that promise to one another, and then experience that unfaithfulness, it could be again whatever you and I agree with in the construct of a Christian home. And so when that promise is broken, it leaves a missing part of yourself. When the two become one, we're supposed to become one, and now we've disconnected, we've fallen apart because of broken promises. And that's that void that you had to fill for over those times of years.
Yeah, I think that Marcus speaks well to the spiritual thing that happens with unfaithfulness. I think there's also a mental, emotional, as psychological aspects that we have to think about too. Because when you get married, not only are you spiritually two people are becoming one, but you are also tying yourself to the purposes, the visions, the goals, the dreams, of this other person, submitting your vision and tying it to this. So when unfaithfulness happens, you begin to question, yourself. You question it bothers your self-esteem because you're wondering how come you didn't see this coming. You're trying to answer questions about, what does this mean about me? Depending on who you are, you're asking questions like, "Am I good enough?" And so there's this psychological hole that this opens up, or the psychological wound or tears, as you said earlier, that you begin to feel, that really starts to affect even again our psyche, who we are. What if all these, you start thinking about all the plans that you had, that you said, "I'll wait because I want to make sure he okay and she okay and our house is okay," and all of the, let's just be real, all the times you had sex you didn't feel like it, and all the times you cooked and didn't want to, and all the times you cleaned and when you rather went hang out with your, like, all of that begins to come up, and you have to wrestle with that. So it's absolutely a spiritual part to this that we have to deal with. But there's also this emotional thing that we have to go through. You done built up Christmas. We had a Christmas routine, and now what am I gonna do on Christmas? I'm used to going to your mama's house for Thanksgiving, and now where am I going for Thanksgiving? And you got all of
I'm
this.
still going to mama's house.
Well, yeah, I did. But what are you gonna do, and how are you going to recover and reshape this part? And not to mention, we got friends together, so now who get to keep the friends? So it's all of this comes up, and you got to think through all of that while you're thinking about, while the enemy is whispering in your ear, and while you have to deal. So the unfaithfulness, again, it tears away every part of who you are. Every
I
part.
don't think whoever does the offense realizes that when they're committing that act, that it was all of that. That the tearing away at the fabric of a family, if there are children, or the tearing away, even if it's just you and the wife or you and the husband, the ripple effect that it will cause in the life of another person. Because I literally didn't want to be here anymore. And I said, God, if you would take me now, it would be okay.
Yeah.
I'm good. And
Yeah.
the only thing that brought me back was my 16-year-old at that time. She would have been the one to find me.
Yeah.
Laying. And is that the legacy that I would want to leave? The blueprint on her brain to have found her mother.
Mm-hmm.
That was just like awful
Wow.
for me.
I don't think that any person, whether they're sane or insane, is thinking about the repercussions of another person when there's unfaithfulness. I think what they're thinking about is how do I serve myself in this moment? That I have a need, I have a want, I have a desire, and that desire is what I want to go after, instead of doing the thing that is best for all of us. For me, for the other person who I'm doing it with, to the other person I'm doing it to. Like, we don't think about that. You're just thinking about, in this moment there is something that I want, and we don't think about consequences. We don't think about repercussions. We just think about that. But that's what lust does. That's what selfishness does. Is it doesn't think about anything else but how do you please yourself in that moment. And you know, and that's it. So no, nobody's thinking about that. Nobody. Ever.
It's definitely a
Come
selfish
on.
act. No, it's definitely a selfish act. It's also the preparation, right? There's a workup. There's a preparation. God tells us to prepare ourselves for our husbands, prepare ourselves for our wives. So when we meet and when we connect and we make that covenant, we're ready for one another. So there's a buildup. right? There's, just like you said earlier, there's joint accounts. There's a preparation that I need to do before I find my wife, my good thing. There was a preparation when Adam was in the garden. He was working and he was tuning into God. He was growing with God. He was naming the animals. He had an assignment. He was working. There was a workup. And so when God gave him Eve, he was ready. And so that is also that can be hurtful because now I did all this work. I did all this work and I did all these things to prepare myself for you, and now it's coming to an end. It can really take you to a really dark place. It's like, God, what happened? I did all the work. I did all these things that you told me to do, and here everything that I knew that I wanted is now ending. And so I can see, and probably many people can relate to why it would take you to a really dark point when those promises are now broken, like you said, a tearing, because you did the work up front, and now you have to start over.
Ooh, I'm hoping and praying that someone that's watching live or that will see the replay sliding through Facebook or YouTube or whatever, this will help them think twice. And I think that's how Straight Talk was birthed. It is to give words to a conversation that people don't have and don't know how to speak. So this will start the conversation. And I think you two gentlemen saying what you, because most of the time you'll hear women say what you guys have said tonight. Most of the time it's a female saying, but for a man to hear him say that it was work, that you're putting it in, you preconceived and you did it, you went after it. I think I'm glad to hear men say things that y'all are saying tonight. So now we're gonna jump into the questions. And I didn't do all these questions by myself. Normally I just like research and study, but I just kind of was at some of my contracts and I was asking some of the females what they wanted me to ask tonight. And one big question from a huge part was if, and this is from a woman's perspective because I'm female, if a man wants to cheat, why even get in a relationship?
So I shared this on my page. The men cheat because we there we realize there's what we have may be the best that we're going to get, but we're missing something. There's a piece missing. And there's a void that I'm trying to fill in my marriage that I'm not getting. And so we seek it out. We oftentimes seek it out elsewhere, but this is just because it's just filling a void. It's selfishly, I'm not going to cancel what I currently have. I have a beautiful home, I have kids, we have the good careers, but I'm not being satisfied in this way. Wherever it may be, sexually, spiritually, this person fills me up. This person is speaking my love language. We're seeking something outside that's not being filled with in our marriage. And so we seek it out, but they realize that what I have is a good thing. And it's not good, and it's selfish, but it's not good enough to leave. And it's not good enough to walk away. And unfortunately, I'm going to continue to fill my cup in this small void that I have, this lust in my heart, this hole in my heart. I'm gonna fill it up with this one thing because it's once a week. It could be alcohol. I'm gonna do this just once a week or every now and again. It's not hurting anybody, but I'm missing this. So I'm gonna go. It's similar to an addiction, right? It's an addiction. And so I'm a. It's not hurting anybody. I'm getting this one my fix, and then I'm back to being the loving husband. I'm back to being the best dad on the planet. I'm at every soccer game. I'm at every sporting event. I'm at every ballerina practice. Everything. But I need this fill up. I met a young woman that was very successful. She's in the IT field, and unfortunately, she lost weight. She got physically fit. Her husband was overweight. So she would travel to North Carolina, Myrtle Beach, to go see this man who was also married. And they would engage and they would have fun and they would exercise and they would do the things that she could not do with her husband. She was filling a void. And so I asked her, I plainly asked her, I said, why don't you just end your marriage? And she said it. She's like, he's a great dad. And I have no desire to be a single parent. He helps, he stays up late with the kids' homework. He stays up, he supports them, he loves them, he takes them to every practice. He cooks, he does the things that she doesn't want to do. So what I have is too good to leave, but I need my fix. And every other month she's traveling to Myrtle Beach with this other married man to fill a void that she's not getting at home. But it's too good to leave.
Wow. Come on, preacher.
So I think what Marcus said is very accurate. I think people do it because what he's saying is relationships are work. In the sense that relationships, in order to keep the spice, the fun, all of that stuff in a relationship, you have to be very intentional. But can I use language? I'm not gonna cuss, but
you go.
With your side piece, you just go get what you're gonna get and you go home. I don't have to talk about bills. You don't have to talk about, how your day was. You're not talking about what stresses you have. You're not talking about you do that with your main person. The purpose of the side piece is to come in, relieve some stress, and you go home. That's it. And I think men who do that, you said, why do men get in a relationship and then cheat? It's because when a man gets into a relationship, his expectation is that the thing that he is getting, the fun that he was having when y'all first met, is going to be the same thing he gets throughout the entire relationship, because he's not seeing that in context right now we are in the fun stage, but when responsibility comes in, now fun has to at times take the back seat to paying some bills, to doing the other stuff, and that's not fun for us. That's not, responsibility is not fun. So we think, well, let me just go back over here and this is like you said, men and women, let me just go get what I need to get here, because guess what? Over here, again, I do love her. I think she's great, but she ain't doing. Let's again. We talking, right? We straight talk.
Yeah.
But she won't do the tricks the other girl won't do.
Wow.
She won't, swing from the chandelier. She want to talk about bills.
Because we got comfortable. Yeah. Some of us get too comfortable in our marriage.
Absolutely.
The work you put in the beginning, that needs to continue.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say the work you put in, you're gonna have to do more, because at the beginning, it's easy to be creative when you don't have any history. But when you have history and you've done the same thing 25 times, now it's like, I got to try something different. Oh, shoot, I got to come up with something different now. And that becomes more difficult. And oh, shoot, now we got kids. I got to figure out how to slip this in when these kids is trying to, want to go to school, and they banging on my door and asking me questions right as we about to get started. I got to figure out how to do all of this, and still I need to get what I need to get, and she needs to get what she needs to get. So there's this more difficult intentionality that has to take place. That can be very difficult and heavy in certain seasons. So let me go on over here, and Shirley Ann just gonna put it on me, and I can go home. And it's not right, but I'm just saying that is the mindset.
I'm very glad that you're being honest, and I don't want to dismiss anything that you're saying. But my question as the wife in the relationship, that to my psyche, it's saying that I'm not enough.
Absolutely.
It's saying that I'm not enough
Yeah.
because I didn't just have the kids. And by the way, I have 10 children, guys.
Right.
That I'm not enough for to balance business, two ministries at that time, cars, bills, money, and I I never thought that I wanted to be with another man. It wasn't when I was tired, when there were moments he wasn't sexy to me, when he didn't just, follow through. But I never thought, hey, that dude down there that keeps saying you look good, I'm gonna try it out.
Hmm.
I'm not. I don't understand.
Yeah, I would say
So
this. I would say this. I don't think that. I think that in general, this is a general statement that for that there is a difference. Like you might not have experienced that, or would not have experienced that in the level of thinking about another man because he was unattractive or didn't show up. But at some point, had he been to you, had he have been inconsistent and over time made you feel like that you weren't a priority or you weren't appreciated and all of these things over time. And I'm not saying you would, but there is a possibility because of the lack of emotional intimacy, you might have been more prone to wonder about somebody else as opposed to for us as men, typically that happens on a physical level because our physical appetites, our sexual appetites are typically something that we have never had to go through a process of learning how to control. So most of us enter marriage thinking that we're going to have sex on the same frequency that we had before, and that we gonna get it whenever we want it, and it's gonna be easy, and we not gonna have to fight for it, and we not gonna have to wait for it. It's gonna be on demand. And when you get into the reality is that it's not true, and now all of a sudden we left with like, wait a minute, hold on. So I was getting it like that when I was single, and now that I done did this covenant with regard thing, all of a sudden I gotta I gotta wait and fight and beg and again, and I'm not suggesting that it is right. It is absolutely selfish. I'm just saying that that is the mindset sometimes of men. Since that was the question.
come on, Marcus, jump on here.
No, so someone said it in the comments, right? Communication is key, right? In any relationship, any ship, communication is key. One of the things as Pastor Burns was speaking came to mind is what you focus on is what you keep.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes we focus on the wrong things and we don't make what's truly important a priority.
Hmm.
And
Mm,
so if
Hmm.
you if, what typically you see it happen, right? People focus on their jobs, their careers, their kids, and then and COVID-19 exposed this. The recession exposed this because when people lost their jobs and they had to go home, they were looking at a complete stranger because they never had to spend this much time with this person before. I only gonna see you around dinner time. We're gonna make a little love. We're gonna go to bed, and then I get to go up and go to work, and I get to spend 8 to 10 to 12 hours away from you. COVID-19 exposed a lot of marriages, a lot of couples who had fallen out of love for years
mm,
because you could no longer hide. You could no longer. It lifted the veil, man. This entire time I've been focusing on my kids. This entire time I've been focusing on my job and my career and spending all this time on the road, on travel, advancing my career, working to get that next promotion, and my marriage is failing. And so when people had to come home, they realized I'm looking at a complete stranger. I don't know you anymore. 18 years have gone by. You hear about it all the time. Oh, we were married for 18, 20, 25 years. But what happened? Typically, the kids moved out, the children left. And now, I have no other distractions except the person I made covenant with. And now for 18 years, I am looking a stranger in the face because I haven't invested any time with them. Because I was focusing on the children. And I'm not saying your children aren't a priority, but who is the covenant with? My old pastor he is madly in love with his wife. He tells his children through their faith in front of their mom. I said, if there is a piece of bread in this house, and this is the last piece of bread, who you think going to get it? He asked his children this. He said, who you think going to get it? And the kids all know. They say it in unison, mom's going to get it. They already know that he is making his wife the priority in his life because that's who the promise is with. You want to discover where someone stands? I ask couples this all the time. You want to know where someone stands? Ask them this scenario. If my wife is on the operating table and we're having a baby and there's complications with the delivery, and and you're incapable, you're doped up, you're drugged up, you can't speak, you're incapacitated. The doctor comes to me and asks me, Mr. Norman, I can only save one of them. Who do you want me to save? Do you want me to save your wife? Do you want me to save the child? I can only save one of them. If couples ask that question very early on, it will very quickly put you guys either on the same page or it will identify that you're not on the same page, because that simple answer will discover where you're at mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Who are you in love with? Where is your heart at? And that simple answer will identify where your head's at. And if we're not on the same page, we need to have a very deep discussion. But the promise is to your wife. Whatever you focus on is what you keep. If the marriage ended, what typically stays? The children. The children are still around. They're here. The marriage is gone. That's what you probably focused on the entire 18 to 20 to 25 years. Because that's what stayed.
And I think I want to say hello to everybody's on tonight because I'm not on my regular things. I want you to know I love you. Thank you for supporting every single week. I think when people saw the flyer and when I was doing my research and I have a group of people and we sit together, they thought when we talked about infidelity, this was only about sex. And you gentlemen have just proved my point.
Right.
That it is not just about sex.
Absolutely not.
It's not.
Yeah. Actually, to be honest with you, most of them the infidelity starts with conversation and then migrates into, and that's men and women, because as a man, a good majority of us, words of affirmation are our love language. And if you're at home and you're not getting the affirmation that you need, or if you are broken, some of us who are broken, and your wife could absolutely be giving you enough words of affirmation, but because of our brokenness, we need a lot more than we should. If you're in one of those positions, then the woman at work telling you so great, ooh, we so lucky to have you. How come? Oh, and just stroking that ego, and you like, yeah, y'all are lucky to have me. And you going home to feeling the exact it starts.
The honey-do list. You gotta why you this? Why you didn't do this? Why I told you to fix the attic. I told you to put that. It's a complete nightmare.
And it starts there. And if you are not a disciplined man, if you are not committed, if you're not able to communicate, babe, listen. Right now, I don't need that. I understand I got a list of things I need to do. I get that. But right now, I need to hear you tell me how good and great I am, because I don't feel very appreciated around here. I don't feel like you are affirming me. And I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of us probably can't say that or don't even know that that's what we really feel. We just know that we don't like the feeling. And you'll hear a lot of men talk about people being nagged. But a lot of that is we just want to be affirmed. We're not being affirmed. We can't communicate the fact that, listen, I need to be affirmed more by you because your opinion is the opinion that matters more than anybody else. And when you don't affirm me, then what it does is it really eats away at my self-esteem. And I am now vulnerable to the attack of the enemy because guess what? I need to hear this. I need you to tell me I'm great. I need you to tell me, all of the wonderful things that you see about me because sometimes I don't see them about myself. So can you do that instead of giving me more work and telling me what I'm not doing and reminding me of how broke I am, I'm not performing the way you desire, or I need to go to church more, and I need to be more spiritual, and I need to be a better father, and I need to do more in the community, and I need to cut the grass. I need less of that and more of, man, you are the man of my dreams, and still today I find you to be an amazing person, and I'm so glad that you are my partner in life.
Proverbs 21. It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and a angry woman. Proverbs 27. A continual dropping in a very rainy day and a contentious women are alike.
I am amazed. My eyes are open because now I'm reevaluating because you put a story, you have a story. And in my marriage, I had a story. And now I'm reevaluating the story. There's nothing I can do about it now. But if God blessed me to have a covenant partner, I want to be able to do what you gentlemen are teaching right now because timing is everything. And I am ready for this conversation tonight so that I can unwind the story that I've told myself. Not giving him a pass for cheating,
No,
not giving him not saying it was my fault and that I was not enough, but I am saying I could have been a better partner. And you gave me the words and you unwind some wires in my head to say, because I was a honey to do list. I definitely was. And I hung it up in the bathroom, in the kitchen, it was in the living room, and it was in the car on the dashboard.
Nope.
I'm just I'm being real honest. We had a lot of kids.
Yeah.
But I don't want that to be an excuse.
Yeah.
I don't excuse him, so don't excuse me. I take full responsibility that I didn't always romance him. I didn't always romance him, not giving him a pass. But could I have built him up more? Could I have given him credit more? And women like to say, you got to stroke his ego. Whatever it's called, what difference is 2 + 2 makes 4? 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 makes 4 too. Long as I'm getting what I need, doesn't matter how I get there. So I appreciate you, gentlemen. Look, we only had one question.
Well, we're talking about a big topic.
It is huge. So that means it's got to be part 2 then, right? There's got to be part 2 to this.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this. I'll say this to you. I think that I appreciate you saying that because one of the things, first of all, you're correct. It's not an excuse, and we're not gonna pretend like it is. But I think it's as a man, it's huge for us to hear our partner say, "You know what? I got it wrong. I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna do it better." Because even knowing that in the future when you do it wrong, to know that your heart is really to do it right is huge. So I appreciate you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm much more mature now. Much more mature now. And I'm much more aware of who she is now. because I was mommy all the time. I was sister all the time. I was minister all the time. I was always in leadership. I just never thought, because we were walking together, that he was second place to
Mm,
all of that. And that was my aha moment tonight. And I wish, even though the family was like destroyed, I wish at some point that I would walk into him. And I know he probably would think it's strange, but I would like to apologize for that. I'm big enough
that's big.
in God to say sorry for that, that you felt second fiddle to our life.
Mhm.
That's big.
So this, I feel like I want to cry. I'm gonna draw it in and get the second question out. Can a relationship recover from infidelity or cheating?
Absolutely.
Huh.
Absolutely.
It can. It's been done. But it takes a true. So I'll say this. I'll go back. Right. So again, we serve a God that is loving and agape and full of love, but He's also a God of wrath. And I did this interview on my podcast where there has to be a true, sincere apology, and it has to not only be said, but it has to come out in the works, right? It has to be shown. And oftentimes, and what also can't happen is when a man or woman is unfaithful, is it's we need to be sure that if there is an apology, that we allow the person that we hurt to heal, however that may be, and however long that may take, right? Why you keep bringing this up? I told you I was sorry. Is that sincerity versus, hey, this moment right here reminds me of when you hurt me, and I'm just feeling this type of way. Yeah, I know, honey. Yeah, and I'm still sorry to this very day. I'm still apologetic, and I'm still bouncing back, and I'm growing, and I'm learning to love you the right way. Right? There has to be, and that's what He gives us, right? He gave His only begotten Son to die for our sins, because He knew what we were going to do. He knew before we were even born what we were going to do, and He sent His Son to die for those sins, those mistakes. And so the greatest example of forgiveness has been shown to us, but that spans centuries of forever, infinity. We have to have that same, because we were built in His image. We have to have that same heart to allow the person that we hurt to grieve and to love on them and to show them true sincerity, true apology. And if they still decide to leave, that that is okay, because of the offense. That is okay. But if they stay, then we need to make sure that we continue to do the work past the apology, past the I'm sorry and the I love yous and the flowers and the chocolates, because it's a lifelong sin that we've committed, that we're paying for, that He paid for.
I'm I'm gonna disagree a little bit with
That's
Marcus.
fine. Go ahead.
So I agree with everything except for the one part you said earlier, where I think that if we choose to stay, if a person chooses to stay, then they have to stay with the understanding that at some point they have to completely forgive the person, which means the way that even though it might come up, that you can no longer hold them accountable or you can't hold it against them. So let's put this in context of Jesus forgives our sin, right? But Jesus, because he makes the choice to forgive us, he doesn't any longer say, "But look at what you did. You did this. You continue to did this." So we're supposed to be modeling ourselves like this. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't suffer the consequence. Now, the consequence in this context would be there's going to be an emotional thing that happens for years in the person, but you can't use that as an opportunity to manipulate, to beat up, force the other person to continue to feel sorry for something that you have chosen to forgive them for. There is a time that we get to have all the conversation you want. You get to say whatever you want, do whatever, you know what I mean? Like, until I have proven over time that I have made a consistent change. I've shown you, hey, these are the things I put in place so this doesn't happen again. I've proven to you over time that this is not the man or woman who I am anymore. And at some point, once that happens, you have to continue to say, when it comes up, you got to say, this is something I got to deal with in me. This is no longer the other person's responsibility to try to make me think that they're not doing something that they're clearly not doing. So let me deal with me. And that other person is, again, doesn't not take accountability for it. But at the same time, we have to at some point be like, all right, I got to let this go. And we can do that. Because I think, to the original question, that relationships can recover from infidelity. I actually think that relationships can be better after infidelity if the recovery is done well. Meaning, we take that time to enter into a deeper, greater level of communication and intimacy. We purpose that we will have full transparency at every area. That at any time that you have a need, that now the space is available for you to tell me what your need is. Anytime that you have a need, that you now have, like, we can enter into a space that now all of the stuff that we were holding in is on the table. So now we like, okay, well, we got all that out. Now I didn't know that. Now that I know that, let's choose to build a life that now we no longer have to pretend or dishonor one another or not say how we feel. Because guess what? The worst thing that could happen to us has already happened. And I choose to still love you and honor you and respect you. And I choose to rebuild this with you because guess what? I realize that I made a mistake and I'm willing to do the work to rebuild what we have. So we can be better if we want to. But to Marcus' point, it's hard. It's super hard. It's very hard. And it does take time. But I just wanted to say that at some point, we got to stop. We can't continue to like hold it up and beat people with something that they did. I got people who I'm like, so how long ago did he cheat? 20 years ago. Wait, time out. So we still mad at you still. And he looking like, Rev, that's what I said. I'm like, wait, so 20, have you cheated again since 20 years? No. And then she got this and this, and this. I ain't did nothing. And man, what's the problem? But he did it 20 years ago and he gonna do it again. I'm like, Lord help. We have to at some point let it go.
Yeah. And to the effect, I'm
gonna ask you. Come on, Marcus, go ahead. And I'm gonna ask my question. Go ahead.
Just real quick, it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, you can't punish someone for an eternity, right? But I'm talking about just having a conversation and just being emotionally vulnerable with your partner. She's not beating you over the head with it. She's just relaying to you, hey, this moment, this thing, I'm right now, the way I'm feeling, or the reason why I'm distant right now is because I'm having flashbacks of when you cheated. And like you said, just having the conversation about it. If she's using it to punish you or continuously hold it against you or to belittle you in some way, or that needs to end, right? Especially if there are no triggers. If I'm not triggering you, if I'm not doing any of the things that caused you before to reflect on the adultery, then why are you still reflecting on it? Help me understand what is happening. So, because maybe I did something, maybe I said something that triggered it. But if I'm not, then like you said, there needs to be internal work on your end that I can't help you with. I can't do that part for you. I can show you better. I can show you the man I am, but the internal work has to be done by you. So yeah.
I was thinking too, I have a life coach on speed dial. And for every preacher, counselor, coach, you got to be able to dump out to somebody with them not looking at you like nuts. Because sometimes when I talk to her on Friday, I'm like a loaded gun, a machine gun unloading all that I got to give her. So when I come home, I'm not unloading it on the few children that are around and ministry and everything. But I was just thinking, trying to find a good way to say this. I'm gonna just say it because I'm so trained. I'm just gonna say it. How is it that most of the time a man likes a woman to forgive, but if the woman does the infidelity, the indiscretion,
Not like you.
it is so hard for him to stay. And I was looking at an episode of Black Love. I went back on this episode on purpose while I was studying this because one of the guys, they've been married 26 years now, right before the pandemic. But he cheated first. Then she was so hurt she cheated, and all his boys told him, "Man, you gonna stay with her after he made her make the noises that you made her make and do what you do to her? Man, you crazy." And I was like, when I was looking at it for the second time, I was like, but isn't that the same thing she felt when you fell into the arms of this other person?
Absolutely.
So, but why is it so difficult for a man? And this is just in my circle. Most of the time in my circle, marriages, they do come back together. But when I hear my friends talk, he's finding it so hard to forgive her. But automatically he said, I know she should forgive me. So why is that?
Uh, I hate television. It's because it's such an exaggeration sometimes. I don't think that happens often. I don't think it happens a lot. And the media is gonna exasperate the negative. I I have not come across where men are just devastated. And if they are, my only thing that I can think of is because of the laws around divorce and separation. I that's the only thing that comes to mind for me is when she cheats. My immediate reaction is, man, she's gonna get half of everything. Now the marriage is over. And usually, and I experienced this with a woman actually who's going through a divorce now, is she when he did all of this. He did the work, he did the flowers, he did the trips, the vacation. When she did it, it's just, well, you did it first. There was no apology. There wasn't the same level of intensity in the apology because he did it first. It came right back up. Oh, you did it first, so I don't need to apologize because the wrong is justified by what you did. And I don't see it enough. I don't see it enough. I don't see it enough to speak on it clearly to say this is the reason why. But that's what comes to mind. One, because the fear of losing everything we've built due to legalities and the law, and then second, because usually the reciprocity isn't there in the apology. The man did all this apology, all this work, and then she did it as a backlash to me. So I don't need to apologize. So now I'm even more devastated because I don't get the same level of apology that I gave. That's what I think.
Okay, let's set up a scenario.
Okay.
She never cheated. He cheated, and he automatically wants to be forgiven. But then on the other hand, the husband never cheated, but the wife did. And he's like, and I have somebody that was close to me. He forgave his wife, but he really still has flashbacks about it, knowing that another man touched his wife the way that he did. And that was his issue. And that in his psyche is what bothers him. And most men don't do a whole lot of talking about it. Us girls, we gonna tell our girlfriends how it felt, it hurt. We gonna tell it. From a man's perspective, what is it? Why is it so hard to get past knowing that another man was with your wife?
It's because for me, it's the workup. It's the work I did, it's the time and the energy, the investment I made into this marriage. And when she has done it, it's I would say it's the same thing. I'm embarrassed. What am I not doing? What am I not fulfilling? Because I do all these things. Just like earlier where I gave the example, there's a void missing. So I'm thinking I'm super husband. I'm doing all these things, and you never said to me, "Hey, babe, you're lacking in this area." Instead, you went and seek it out elsewhere instead of talking to me. So now, just like they're saying, shame, embarrassment. I feel embarrassed. Another man had to give you this thing. Another man is the age old example. I shared it on my page. Your ex buys you a Range Rover. You're married. We're married. Your ex, who's come into some money, buys you a previous relationship a Range Rover as an apology for your breakup. Why is another man doing something for you when you're with me? So I remove sex, but I give something in place of the sex, which is a very expensive car. Why is another man? How could another man satisfy a need that you have? Why didn't you tell me you needed a Range Rover? Why didn't you come to me? And that is hurtful because you went elsewhere before and sought something else out that and didn't talk to me. Didn't even give me the opportunity to provide you a Range Rover, or if you were lacking sex or intimacy or quality time or whatever. That's hurtful.
Come on, preacher.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe not consciously,
Hmm.
but on a subconscious level, I think I'm gonna go with that because I'm gonna hope that's what it is. Um, Men feel like our woman is ours, and and almost to the level. And this is where I say I hope it's subconsciously, almost like on the same level like our car, like almost like on a property level. So you're not supposed to, like, this is mine, and how dare something that's mine be with something that somebody like you are my woman, and now you doing this reflects me. How, like, there is a level of first of all, this is a, again, of, I don't want to use the word property because I don't think we think you're property, but I think we think there's an ownership that comes with exclusivity that you're no. And again, and we don't always transfer this the other way, but that's part of the male ego and the male, like, machismo that we have, that we struggle with. And so, yeah, if somebody else does something for mine that I can't do, now that's attack on my masculinity. Just like you said earlier when you were talking about feeling like I'm not enough. That's the same thing we feel in that moment. Like, wait a second. So you don't think I can handle this? You don't think I'm able to buy you a Range Rover? And now we're struggling. We're reeling because our self esteem has been poked at. So yeah, no, my masculinity is not being questioned. So I gotta one up this man because you not no. Mm-mm.
I met a I met
I
a
was go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Marcus.
No, I met
I was gonna say, in reference to the Range Rover, the type of covenant partner that I am, and I've been married twice, guys, two times. I would not have taken the Range Rover, even if I didn't have a car, because I wouldn't have wanted my husband to feel slighted. I wouldn't have taken it. I wouldn't have taken it. I would not have taken the car because I wouldn't want him to feel less than.
yeah.
So, what were you gonna say, Marcus?
No, yeah, and it's we're territorial. We as men, we're very territorial. Like Pastor said, I'm paying the bills. I'm doing all this stuff, and it's like another man you felt could do for you, and it hurts. It hurts on the same level as what a woman may feel if a man does it, but it hurts. We're very territorial. We want what we want. We want what's ours, and we don't want to share. And another man doing something that I had another man. He shared with me his wife wasn't being satisfied in the bedroom. He went to the doctor. He got herbs. He got he got rubs and oils and lotions and potions. He bought it all because his wife came to him in confidence and communication to share. I'm not being satisfied in this way. So the man, because he was given the opportunity to correct it, he went in and sought help. And so, because he doesn't want his wife going anywhere else, he spent buku money, big money, doctors, holistic medicine, which is not typically covered by traditional health insurance. He spent a lot of money to get better in the bedroom to satisfy his wife because he does not want his wife going anywhere because that's the promise he made. And we are very territorial, and we'll move to the moon if that's what you telling me. If I love you and you tell me I'm not feeling this, I'm gonna fix it. Because that's what we do. We're fixers.
You just said something key though. If I love you.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to end with this last comment. And you guys, you said, if I love you, so you'll go to the ends of the earth, potions and spending the money. So will you stay in a loveless relationship because it's covenant? Are we supposed to stay? This has nothing to do with infidelity, but it has something to do with the conversation tonight. Should we stay in a loveless relationship because it's covenant relationship?
Yes. So the Bible says the Bible gives very specific reasons on what you can do to leave a marriage. This is the confines of the construct of where you can leave. Everything else can be worked on. Everything else should be worked on. Right? If it doesn't meet these parameters, you need to work on your marriage and find out what happened and work on that marriage and continue. If you're not being beaten or abused or he's not cheating on you, everything else can be worked on. Money can be fixed, sex can be fixed, the kids can be fixed or sent off to school. Everything else, communication, therapy, counseling, everything else can be worked on. But it takes two people to do it. It takes two willing participants to work on this.
Come on, preacher.
Okay. Should you stay in a loveless marriage? It depends. What does that? I mean, I need some nuance. There's nuances to this because it takes two. Like there are some marriages that are full of love that you don't need to stay in my opinion. Like I feel like that because people say they love you and beat you. You know what I mean? So that's a very extreme. But I think that you should. I fully believe that you should try everything you can, every resource available. I agree with everything that Marcus just said in terms of counseling and all, like exhaust every possibility. But I think at the end of the day, some people just don't want to be. They don't want to do the work consistently, and I don't know. I honestly don't know how we are honoring the covenant of marriage by staying when the other person has already left, or when the other person has decided that they don't really care about your destiny. So again, I'm not advocating for divorce. I'm just saying that I think that we have. I think that some of the ways that we have interpreted certain passages might not. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know.
So,
I don't.
so
And I say that because, and I say this because I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
you're good.
I see way too many people who have gone through, who have done it, who have stayed, who have done the work, who have at the end of all of that, years and years and years, and nothing has changed. And they're left with like, where's God? Why couldn't I get the release? Like I've seen some pretty abusive, like emotionally abusive relationships where they're like, but they didn't physically cheat, so I gotta stay. And I'm like, I I just question like God, where you know. So that's my truth. I don't know.
Come on, Marcus.
So for those of you that don't know these things, the three reasons of what the Bible says that you can leave your marriage is adultery, sexual immorality, and abandonment. So I want to say those so that you have that in your armament. Those are the only three biblically that you can leave your marriage. So I go back to my point. Everything else can be worked on. You having money issues, you're broke, you can work on that. That is not a reason to leave your husband, right? Abandonment, a great example of abandonment. And I hear it and it shocks the bejesus out of me is when it's like, oh, well, I'm not feeling lovey-dovey today. She goes and moves in with her parents, or she goes and leaves and moves in with family, and she leaves the house. The husband is going through it right now. They're going through it right now, and she's like, well, I'm not feeling lovey-dovey. I'm gonna just go with my parents until things get better. That is abandonment. And so when you hear couples or women or men that say, "Oh, you mad at me? We gonna stay right here and figure this out." There's no. Oh, I'm gonna go to the hotel. I'm gonna go to my parents. I'm gonna go stay with some friends and boo boo in them. There ain't none of that. That's abandonment, right? You have abandoned your marriage. That is grounds biblically for divorce, right? We're gonna stay right here and work this out. And I'm not talking, and for those of you that about to jump on me, oh, that's entrapment. I'm not his slave. We're not talking about entrapment. You're not a slave to me, but you have to communicate with me so we can get through this hard time. We're not gonna figure this out by you staying with mom and dad. We're not gonna figure this out with you staying with the kids. We're not gonna work this out. We're not gonna get better if you are not here. You can go out, but you need. It's the same thing when women say they get mad at, oh, he was out all night and he didn't tell me where he was. I'm not your slave, but I've made a commitment to let you know where I'm at.
Okay.
Honey, I can't speak to you right now. I'm upset, but I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna work this off, but I'm coming home. I'll be home around this time. If you do that, just that little piece, and assure her that you're coming back, it could save so many marriages. Just communicate. Just tell her, babe, I can't deal with you right now. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna go work out. I'm gonna go for a walk in the park, but I'm coming home. I'm coming right back. Versus I'm gonna disappear on you and I'm not letting you know when I'm coming back because I've been in the hotel. Now that opens the door to temptation. That opens the door to so many things that she or he is now wondering on, like, where are they? Why haven't they called me? Why haven't they texted me? Hey Joe, hey mom and dad, you seen Marcus? No, he ain't here. That opens too many. So abandonment, adultery, and sexual immorality are the three.
Come on, Winfrey. You gonna say something?
I don't disagree. I think that most of the time it's the part beyond that like after that, like when we're in a stage where we can do that, where I can, that's fine. But when it gets to the stage where I am trying, one person is working and the other person is not, when one person is doing the things and making the compromise and have done this and wants to go to the counselor and they're doing this, and the other person is completely set in doing something different, that's when why I'm saying, like, I don't know, like, and what I've seen is I've seen them there won't be any infidelity. There won't be any abandonment. As a matter of fact, they'll stay to make you miserable. And
Mm.
the scripture to try to make you feel, to try to trap you, not trap you, I don't know use that word, but to try to make you feel bad about questioning what's happening in the relationship. So I think what Marcus is saying is absolutely correct when you're in that space where me saying I'm mad, I'll be back, and we can talk about it. But when we can't talk about it, and when you don't want to have a conversation, and all of a sudden you telling me where I can go or what I can do, and I'm like, listen, but I love you, I'll work this out. I don't like at that point. That's what I'm saying. I really don't like. I think at that point now we have to have some serious prayer. We have to have some serious, time with God to say, okay, God, listen, I'm just about out, and I don't know what else to do. And I've seen situations where the grace of God has filled a person, and that person has changed, and this other person has been able to stand through it. And I've seen where this person has been demoralized and angry at God, and bitter, and have turned into a shell of themselves. So that's why I always say I don't know. I don't know. I want to say that everything that yes and work it out and it can be worked out because I think it can, but I think everybody has to want to put in the work, or we are dying a slow death.
And we are going to put a pin in this, but I need you guys to promise that you're coming back so we can finish the conversation. And I can't see the comments, but I see how many comments there are. So I know people want more. And I think this is a conversation that needs to be had. God allowed me to choose two men who are mature, adult, and great communicators, that you are able to be so flexible that you'll say, I need more from you.
Yeah.
And I was married twice, and neither of my former spouses ever told me they needed more. And I would hope to believe if they said it, that I would have been woman enough, because I say that I have the Holy Ghost, that I would bring it down and give him more. So I appreciate you, gentlemen, for giving me some aha moments tonight. I don't know if I'm going to sleep well tonight because I have some praying to do, because I need to make some things not just right with them, but with God. Because I told myself a story so many years. I owe an apology to somebody. So we at that point, gentlemen, if you have one, I'm gonna give each of y'all about 40 seconds, and there's one thing that you want to say to a man that is in trouble and his marriage is on the rocks, or he's just about to go to the hotel with the other woman who happens not to be his wife. What would you say to him tonight?
Don't do it.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. I would say lead with love in everything you do in all aspects of life. Give it your best. Do it your best. Even in the Bible, it depicts the slave working for the master, giving it his best. Work hard for your master. And so when you make that covenant to your wife, do it in love and do it to the best of your ability. Give 110% each and every time. Lead with love. Lead your kids with love. Lead your families with love. Lead your and stay in love. That's what I would say.
I would tell him that the thing that he's feeling, the void that he's feeling is real, but the way he's about to go about it is not healthy. Tell her what you need. And don't be, I think that first of all, I've been telling a lot of my friends, like, quit this, even with this whole idea of like, men shouldn't be celebrated for the stuff we supposed to do, and it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal if we want to celebrate. Men have this thing like, oh, if I don't get nothing for Father's Day or my birthday, it's okay because this is what I'm supposed to do as a husband. Hogwash. You deserve to be celebrated. You should be celebrated on a regular basis. You should be appreciated on a regular basis. And as a matter of fact, the same way that you go about celebrating Mother's Day and their birthdays, it's the same way you can say, I want that for me because I think I deserve it. Do that. Don't go to the hotel.
I have left churches because of that. I've left ministries because of that, because the men aren't celebrated enough.
Yeah. And I want to say to a woman that's thinking or typing that, why are they saying it like that? This is their moment to tell their truth tonight so that we can learn to be better. So let's hear them out. And that's why our marriages, some of them are ended, because we don't hear the full story. And tonight we've heard the full story. And we're not giving anybody a pass for cheating. That is not what's being said tonight. But there are solutions and there are things that have happened why things happen. If you bring two broken people together, most of the time something's going to happen. But how about come to the table whole before you say I do? How about that? So we're going to put a pin in it. But the first question I'm asked when you come back, and I'm writing it down in my book, the question I'm going to ask you guys is about infidelity. If you treat with the same sex, is it still infidelity? Don't answer.
Okay.
So that's going to be the first question. So I'm going to text and email. You guys going to give me some dates. And we don't want it to be too far out. But that's going to be the first question.
Okay.
If I cheat with another female, is it infidelity? So tonight, everybody, I want to say I love you. Thank you, gentlemen. I honor you for coming on tonight. I honor all my listeners every week for supporting me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I love you. Have some amazing service on tomorrow. And we say good night. Have a good night, everybody.
Night.